Okay, guys, one last couple slides here on the central nervous system. Wrap this up since we didn't get quite through them today. We got to talk about what we call the cranial nerves, which are the nerves that are attached to the bottom of the brain. And as it states there, either they originate from or terminate in the brain. There's 12 pairs of them total. Numbered from 1 to 12 using Roman numerals, and we go anterior, which would be this where the frontal lobes are, to posterior, back here where the medulla is. There are 3 different categories of cranial nerves: sensory, motor, and mixed. Now, the sensories are called sensories because they're predominantly made up of sensory neurons, which means that their job is predominantly to carry a signal into the brain. Whereas a motor is predominantly made up of motor neurons, is associated with carrying a signal out. Things like our skeletal muscles, where they'll end up going, and stuff like that. Okay. Mixed nerves are like our spinal nerves, which we'll talk more about in our next unit, contain both sensory and motor neurons. They're like a 2-lane highway, meaning signals are coming in both directions. Okay. What I've done here in our slide is broken them down to show you which ones belong where, okay, which is also what's shown here in this table 8.1. Okay, in fact, it's the third of the columns. Okay, not only do they have a number 1 through 12, but they also have a special name. And if you kind of look at the name, sometimes it tells you exactly what it's associated with, like the first cranial nerves, olfactory, are associated with olfaction, the sense of smell. Okay? They are the nerves that carry signals from our nose into our brain so that we can process what we smell. Some of them, like the abducens, you're not going to be able to just look at it and say, oh yeah, that's what it does or what it's associated with. Of the ones that are listed here, we probably talk about these first two, the vestibulocochlear nerve, I should say, because there's 2 of them, and then the vagus nerves, probably the most. These first 2, olfactory, optic, are associated with smell and vision. These are actually attached to the back of our eye. Vestibulocochlear nerve is a very important nerve because it's involved with hearing and balance or equilibrium. Those 2 special senses are senses that are processed in our inner ear and transmitted from our inner ear by way of these nerves into our brain. Vagus nerve is going to come into play a lot in our next lecture because it is a very important autonomic nerve. Okay? It carries signals down to our abdominal organs, and actually, which is amazing, considering it starts with the brain. The term vagus, in this way it's spelled, not like Las Vegas, translates to mean wanderer. It actually travels down from our head, through our neck, pierces through the diaphragm in our chest, and innervates, the stomach and intestines and so on and so forth. So it's very involved with autonomic reflexes, as we'll find out here in our next lecture, especially when we talk about sympathetic, parasympathetic stuff. Others, we talk a little bit about, or really kind of not so much, but I do definitely want you to know this table, the number, the name, whether it's sensory or motor, but, know the functions, for the most part. Some of them are pretty super simple, like the vagus, it's a little more complicated, but make sure you know them, because I might, and I will probably put some questions on the exam. Okay, that's it. So we'll stop it here.